The last time when I was editing a video, I was looking for an old picture and I found a hidden gem, which is my first workout routine. And today we're gonna go over that and just in general see what I did well, see what I did wrong, see what I would change, and hopefully you will learn something from that. And first I would like to begin with the fact that even though this program is, as we will see, not gonna be as good, one thing that I did really well when I started going to the gym is I had a program, okay? A lot of people just go to the gym, they don't have a program. I clearly remember that the first day when I went to the gym, I already had a program. I knew that I wanted to start going to the gym, and what I did basically was, I knew that okay, tomorrow I will have to go to the gym and I don't know what to do, so I will have to create a program. And I started searching online on what kind of exercises exist and what I should do. And at the time I was doing boxing and I was really passionate about it, and I wanted to start going to the gym by the side of boxing. So I wanted boxing to be like my main thing and like go to the gym on the side, which I did for probably like 2 weeks and then I quit boxing. And then the gym essentially became a main thing. But yeah, and so I already had a little bit of experience with knowing that we pretty much didn't always do the same shit on boxing training, but it was usually had the same structure. And so I knew that I would have to have a structure and a program. I looked up exercises online and what other people do and what a typical program looks like, and I somehow crafted my own. And that's another thing that we could question. Is it better to start programming on your own when you first begin your training, or is it better to follow somebody else's program? And what I would say is, ever since I started training, there has only been like a very little period of time, like 5-6 months, when I was doing first starting strength and then strong lift 5v5, when I wasn't programming for myself. And that period, and just looking at other people's programs, it taught me quite a couple of things, and some of those were good, like progressive overload and focusing on compound movements, and some of them were really bad. But I talk about that in a different video, you can watch that here. But if you're a beginner, it would probably be a good idea to follow somebody else's program who is actually knowledgeable, which you cannot really know since you're a beginner. But whatever program you're going to find, there's a pretty big chance that it's going to be better than what you will end up writing and following if you do it yourself. However, later on when you become an intermediate, I highly encourage you to start programming for yourself, because you will not be able to get to advanced status with constantly following other people's programs. And also, you need to make your own program, because you need to know what exercises work for you well, what rep ranges you resonate with, just in general what you like and enjoy, and also what are your weak points, what do you want to work on, what can you neglect a little bit more. So there's a huge value in learning to program for yourself, and hopefully you will learn a couple of things in this video. Starting with the whole split. I was doing a very weird like self-made split, which was, my training was split to 2 days and I was training 4 times a week, and I don't really remember, but I'm pretty sure I had enough brain cells to like not do it 4 days in a row or something like that. So I don't exactly remember, but I'm pretty sure that I had rest days in between these. But yeah, basically what I would do is do day 1, day 2, probably rest somewhere, I don't know, and then do day 1 and day 2 again. So that's 4 times a week. And day 1 was chest, triceps, and I wrote thighs. That's because I didn't know about like quads and hamstrings at the time. So yeah, and day 2 is gonna be back, biceps, abs, and shoulders. Now this split is not terrible, but I'm not doing it anymore, and I probably wouldn't do it now. Now the first line is warming up. I literally wrote down like warming up, stretching, skiing. Skiing is like not actually skiing, that was some sort of motion that we did on boxing. So I basically just wrote down everything we did to warm up when I would go to boxing, and I would do the same, but I don't actually remember doing it for a very long time. And I also wrote 5 minutes of running. I mean, doing a little bit of light cardio for warming up, especially if you're doing a leg day, for example, doing like a little bit of cycling beforehand is not a bad idea. It's a good idea, but you shouldn't really exhaust yourself. And I mean, 5 minutes of running is not that exhausting, but I don't know, I mean, it doesn't really matter that much. But I probably would put this more so at the end of the training, but you will see that there's also running at the end of the training. And then we go on to the first 3 exercises. There is something there that looks a little bit like a swastika, but it isn't. It is just like lining together all of these, but it's not because this was a superset, it wasn't. I just wrote these together because I didn't want to write 5 times 10 3 times. I was so fucking lazy. So for every exercise where I had to do 5 times 10, I just like lined them together. So first of all, bench press, it was with a barbell, 5 sets of 10. Now I would say that is solid. There's no problem with that except for the 5 sets. I wouldn't do 5 sets. Honestly, at this point in my life, I wouldn't do 5 sets of any exercise ever. I think 4 sets still can be okay, but literally like the highest amount of sets I will do for one exercise is 3 sets. I never do more than that. So I usually do either 2 or 3 sets for an exercise. Sometimes I will do 1, but then if I do 1, usually I only do that because, for example, when it comes to triceps, I do 3 sets of triceps on one day. And I like to always open with a push down to warm up my elbows. And so in that case, I don't need more sets. I don't need 4 sets. So I'm not gonna add an extra set just to do like 2 sets of each exercise. I have 2 workouts a week where I train triceps. One workout I do 1 set of push downs and 2 sets of some sort of extension. And the other week, the other day it's reversed. So it's 2 sets of push down, 1 set of extension. But honestly, do you need 5 sets when you're a complete beginner in the gym? No. Probably even 2 sets is gonna be enough. 3 is definitely gonna be enough, okay? When it comes to chest, I do 3 sets of chest per workout. I do 6 sets of chest per week. I'm progressing just fine. And even if you do want to do 5 sets for a certain muscle group on the same day, do it on 2 different exercises, okay? Split it up. Do 3 sets of one exercise, 2 sets of the other one. The second exercise is going to be an incline dumbbell press, which is also a solid exercise. Rep range is also pretty good. Now, another thing, technically it's not a rep range, so I only did straight sets, and that's something that doesn't really make a lot of sense, okay? If you're going to do 5 sets of 10 on a certain movement, either if you do 5 sets of actually 10, the first set is not gonna be challenging at all. You're going to have like 3-4 reps in reserve, and the last set is going to be the most challenging. And so really, if you're doing that, you're doing a little bit of junk volume on the first set, which could be actually the most valuable sets, and I did a video about that. You can watch that here. So for these, for an example, I would rather put a 6 to 10 or maybe an 8 to 12. Definitely not an 8 to 12 to bench press though, that seems a little bit too high. For bench press, a 6 to 10 max, and for incline dumbbell press, I guess it could be an 8 to 12 or a 6 to 10. But the exercise itself is solid. But it's not needed at all, because at that point we're doing 10 sets of chest, which you don't even need 10 sets of chest per an entire week if you're a beginner. If you do 3 sets of 6 to 10 on the bench press, and then on the other day do 3 sets of 8 to 12 on the incline dumbbell press, we're good. The third exercise is a squat, which I did with a barbell, okay? I didn't start with Smith machine squats. I started with, actually not a barbell, because I didn't find the barbells and the racks, so I wasn't even like really looking for them. I picked up, there are like preset like barbells essentially, they're usually like 20, 25 and then 30 kgs, and I first started doing squats with that, and then I discovered the Smith machine where I could load more, so then I started doing that because I didn't realize that there was like a squat rack and a bar. I don't know why, but eventually I actually did go to a normal squat rack and started doing normal squats, and as you see, squat, completely solid exercise, there's no problem with that. One thing that was a bit of a problem is I was squatting way too high, so I didn't go low enough, but at that time I didn't really see myself and I didn't know how low I should go. And also, something else was that the reason why I couldn't go low, and I see a lot of people make this mistake, and that's also why they usually eventually get knee pain, is because I was pushing my knees way too forward, okay? You need to push your knees to the sides. Now, not completely to the sides, but it's something like this. It's not like this, it's not completely forward. Your feet should face a little bit outward and your knees should go in the same direction. And then you can also go pretty deep. You don't have to go ass to the grass, because you do whatever range of motion feels comfortable to you, just don't do too little, okay? Don't bullshit yourself. But if something is like very uncomfortable and it hurts or something, then obviously don't do it. I like to go to at least parallel. Again, 5 sets of 10, I wouldn't do that, but maybe a 3 sets of 6 to 10, maybe that's a little bit high reps, maybe, but I mean, it's not that bad. You can definitely do 10 reps of squats, but maybe a little bit lower reps would be better. And I was actually progressing pretty well in the squats, so there was something that I did really well and that's why I have so big legs. That's why legs are literally probably the best body part of mine, or at least my quads, and maybe not my hamstrings, but my quads are definitely my best body part. The first day I went into the gym, I started training legs, and I've never stopped ever since. Sometimes I feel like I don't want to train legs. I still go and train them, and I've always progressed in it, and I always trained it with full intensity. And squats have always been a staple in my training program. There was a very brief period of time when I wasn't able to squat because of some pain, and that's when my legs didn't grow at all. They actually shrank. So do your squats, but if you don't do them, at least do hack squats. The next thing is incline dumbbell fly. I wouldn't do that. It's completely junk volume, it's completely unnecessary. At this point we're doing 13 sets of chest. The rep range itself, 3 times 12 is, I mean, it's not bad. And the movement itself is, it's pretty stretch biased, so I wouldn't say it's that bad. But the way I was doing it was pretty bad, let's be honest. But I don't necessarily have any problem with the movement, but I just don't see the point in doing it. I don't do it anymore. I just simply don't need that much volume. Next is finally some triceps. It's triceps extension, 3 times 12. That's solid. There's no problem with that. If you're wondering what I did that with, I was doing it with one dumbbell. So what I was doing was getting like both of my hands up like this, holding one dumbbell and doing it like this, and that's a very solid exercise. I don't do that anymore because my elbows don't really like it, but at that time, I mean, I was lifting so light weights that I literally had terrible form on almost everything. My joints didn't feel anything at all because I wasn't strong enough. When I started training, I couldn't, no wait, I could actually bench the bar, but it was really challenging. I was very skinny and underweight. But yeah, this was a pretty solid exercise. There's no problem with that. With the amount of sets, there's also no problem. Rep range, no problem. Next thing is 3 sets of 12 on a lunge. This was a dumbbell lunge, and I was doing it alternating. So left leg, left, right. Now, I don't see that much of a problem with that, but honestly I hate lunges because I think, I don't know, I personally prefer, if we have to do a single leg exercise, I would prefer to do Bulgarian split squats because I think they're a lot more stable, especially if you're doing them in a Smith machine. I think if you want the best single leg exercise, Bulgarian split squat in a Smith machine is gonna make you completely hate your life, but it's probably the best thing that you can do. There's a single leg variation. When it comes to lunges, I haven't done them in years. I don't want to do them. I don't like them. There's no problem with them, but again, I would do something else. But also, I don't need this volume. I already did 5 sets for legs. This is not needed, but I would say that it's much better than the chest. Okay, 8 sets of legs is a little bit maybe too much for a beginner, but it's a solid amount of sets, and there's still something that's perfectly sustainable. The 13 sets of chest is an abomination. You're not even going to do that when you're like very advanced probably, but when it comes to the quads, yes, it could be less, but this is also perfectly fine. And that was it. After the training, I am supposed to do 5-10 minutes of running at 12 to 13 kilometers per hour. Now that might seem like a little bit too fast, but I'm 6'3" right now. I don't know how tall I was at this time. I was 14 years old, or maybe 15, and I wasn't as tall as I am right now, but I wasn't a lot smaller. So running at this pace, especially because I was very light, so I was like 65 kilograms, it was like effortless basically. Like with a little bit of effort, I could run at 14 kilometers per hour. And then we have boxing, which says boxing bag spinning. We would say spinning when you were like really, you know, like spinning it, like doing really like fast boxing on the bag. 1, 45, 45, 30, 30, 15, 15. I have no idea what this means. I have absolutely no clue, and I know that I never ever did this because when I first went to this gym, I knew that this gym has a boxing room. But one thing that I didn't know is that you cannot go into the boxing room without paying extra, and I didn't want to pay extra, so I wrote this down and I never ever did it. Oh yeah, but actually wait, this wasn't it, because later on, since I was only going to this gym for like a month, and then I went to another gym, and I remembered that I already did these exercises in this gym. I think I probably added these after like a week or maybe 2 weeks. 3 exercises, no amount of sets or reps, nothing. So I don't know what the fuck this was, but it was rope pull downs. That wasn't rope pull downs, I don't know what the fuck that is. It was rope push downs, rope tricep push downs with a single rope, and I really fed my triceps with that. There is also, I mean, it's not a bad exercise in this triceps isolation, that's always good to have. But today I would probably never do a single rope tricep pushdown for the sole reason that I think it's a classic exercise, but it's like in the middle where it doesn't really do anything particularly well. So I would say it's in the middle between a V-bar pushdown, which is a completely like brute force unga bunga tricep exercise, or you can do it with a straight bar as well, it doesn't matter. V-bar or straight bar pushdown is completely brute force. You can lift the most amount of weight generally with those, and those are gonna be good for that. And if you want more long head, then you can do a dual rope pushdown. A single rope pushdown is somewhere in the middle in between these, where you have a more free range of motion than a straight bar or a V-bar, but it's not the best still, because you cannot lift as much weight, but you're not getting really a lot of long head activation either. So personally, I don't do this exercise anymore. I use either 2 ropes when I'm doing pushdowns, or I'm using a V-bar, or I'm doing a single arm push down with a D handle. But this is not bad, I'm just saying that there's better than this, but at least we see more tricep isolation, which I don't think we necessarily need, but it's always good to have. Cable crossover. We don't need any more for chest, okay? We've done 13 sets of chest. Even if this was 1 set, which I don't know if it was, we don't need it. But I also know that I usually didn't do this, because I've done this probably once and then I never did it again, because there was never 2 cable stations available where I could like do this. And also right now I hate when people do this exercise. Like, don't take up 2 cable stations. There's so many good chest exercises that you can do. Also, if you want to do just solely pack flies, pack fly machine, dumbbell pack flies, whatever, but please don't take up the fucking cable station. Usually the people who do these don't even do them right, okay? They usually do it from down below, and they will literally do like, it's gonna be more front delts for them than chest, so they're not even doing the exercise well, so it doesn't even really do much for the chest. They don't get into a stretch, they just do like this, and they also don't let you join them, so do something else, please. And dumbbell skull crushers. At this point, do we need any more triceps isolation? Probably not, definitely not, since we're complete beginners. But when it comes to the exercise itself, I remember how I did this exercise the same way as I did my tricep extensions. I grabbed a dumbbell, I would lie down on a bench, and I would grab that 1 dumbbell between my 2 hands, and I would just let it get down like this, actually not behind me, to my head, because it was a skull crusher, and then I extended. Now that really limits the range of motion, 1. Second, I mean, it's not that good of an exercise. Now, it's not terrible. It's probably gonna be better with a bar, but I wasn't able to do it with a bar because of elbow pain. But yeah, I would never do this exercise probably again. Something that I do is decline dumbbell extensions. It's not a skull crusher, so I don't, it's an extension, okay? I don't let it like towards my head. I let it way behind my head, and that's actually a really good motion for triceps. Secondly, back, biceps, abs, shoulders. The warm-ups are the same, so we don't have to bother with that. And then the first exercise is pull-ups, 5 sets of max, means as many reps as you can do. Now at this point I was able to do my first pull-up probably like a month or maybe 2 months beforehand. And so I was able to do like 5 reps. So I don't remember at all what it looked like for me to do 5 sets of as many reps as possible, but probably, I mean, if you can do 5 reps on the first set, how many are you, and it was to failure by the way, realistically, how many reps are you going to do on your 5th set, maybe 2, which is not very effective, but I didn't care because I wanted to do pull-ups. Would I do this again? Probably not. I would get a band maybe and do a little bit higher reps, or maybe just try to do 2 sets of very hard 5 reps and then move on to another exercise. Already the 5 sets are gonna be a little bit too much. Now you can do a lot more for your back, but also you'll see that this is a back day. You should train your back with higher frequency generally and just overall like distribute the volume a little bit. So right now I'm training back 4 times a week and I'm doing some sort of pull-up variation twice, usually 3 sets, and the other 2 days are, on one of them I do a row. Right now I am doing a croc row, and I'm usually either doing that, so either a croc row or doing a cable row that is more like thickness focus. So I have the pull-up variations for my lats, and the rest of it is going to be for traps, and the rows are more like mid-trap, and on the last day I do shrugs. I usually either do power shrugs with a barbell or a chest supported shrug with dumbbells, and with these exercises and training methods my traps got a lot bigger. But the exercise itself, pull-ups, that's a solid one. Next one is gonna be bent over rows, 5 sets of 10 reps. Again, static rep range, 5 sets. I mean, do we need 10 sets of back per week? Realistically, yeah, probably, but not per workout when we're doing back twice a week, and definitely not these 2 back exercises on the same session. And we're also going to have later on a 3rd back exercise, so that's a very bad idea. But okay, bent over rows. You know, a lot of people who are jacked as fuck love bent over rows. Then other people don't really like it that much, and I'm more into that camp. I tried doing bent over rows so many times before in my life because there's always like people like Ball Dominant, for an example, who preach it and they say that it's a really good exercise, and I do believe that it works for them. It has never ever fucking worked for me. Either you're doing it with a lot of cheat and your back is barely doing anything, and you're doing it with a lot of weight and with a lot of body English. That's what most people do, by the way. Or you do it with like very strict form and you barely lift any weight, and it's very like you're not feeling like it does a lot for your back, and it's very hard, and I mean not in the good way. It's like you have to focus a lot on your form. I did both, okay? I tried both methods, none of them worked. I hate barbell rows completely. I will probably never do them again. I have no clue. Maybe I will give them a chance later, but I currently, I haven't done barbell rows for a while, and my back has progressed a lot. Whenever I was doing barbell rows, my back didn't progress shit. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad exercise. It could be good for you. It's a personal bias, but I wouldn't tell people to do a barbell rows, especially if they're beginners. And we also don't need all of these sets on this day. Next exercise is overhead press, 5 sets of 10, okay? That's completely unnecessary. 5 sets of overhead press work is insane, especially because we did 10 sets of presses for chest yesterday. So my front delts are really fatigued already. They're really beaten up, and now we're doing extra, and we're doing a lot of extra. Keep that in mind. Now, one thing I do like is at least I do overhead pressing, because for a lot of time after this I subscribe to the idea that if you're doing enough chest pressing, you will not have to do overhead pressing for your front delts, which is, I mean, the thing is, overhead press doesn't only train your front delts, okay? It also grows your side delts, and just in general I would say that overhead pressing is pretty much the only like pure unga bunga exercise that you can do for your shoulders, and you should do both those and the optimal exercises, as we already know, because I already said it a couple of times on this channel. So it's a good thing that I'm doing them, but it's a bad thing that I'm doing them on this day, and it's also a really fucking bad thing that I did so much chest yesterday and that I'm doing so much front delt work on this day. 2 sets is perfectly enough. If you're a bit more advanced, 3 sets. I would never do more than 4 sets of front delts when we already did chest pressing. And the last exercise is 5 sets of 50 of sit-ups. I don't remember ever doing this, but I think I probably did. I just don't remember it because probably it was so insignificant. This doesn't make any sense. You should train your abs as any other muscle group. It would be a better idea to do 3 sets of maybe 8 to 12 on a decline sit-up, or I probably wasn't able to do every rollout at this time. You can also do something like either a lying or a hanging leg raise, but it should be progressible with weights, and you shouldn't do 50 reps. Like, what the fuck does that do? Nothing. But at this time, I didn't know that yet. Next thing, biceps pull-ups, which meant chin-ups. I just didn't know that they were chin-ups. 3 sets of as many reps as possible. We've already done 10 sets of back, so we absolutely don't need this. And also, as I said, I wasn't that good at this time at doing pull-ups. I was able to do 5 pull-ups fresh at the beginning of the workout. So after 5 sets of pull-ups, 5 sets of bent over rows, how many reps did I do on this exercise? I don't fucking know. I don't remember, but probably not that much. So I would just scrap this. The exercise itself is not bad though. It's just, it doesn't make any sense here. The next exercise is standing biceps curl. I did this with a dumbbell. That's solid. It's 3 sets of 12. So I think that's solid. There's no problem with that. No problem with the amount of sets. No problem the reps. Seated incline curl, the same. I think a seated incline curl is gonna be a little bit better of an exercise. That is perfectly fine. That is a really good exercise. Again, good amount of sets, reps for the specific exercise, so everything is all good. We probably don't need 6 sets of biceps though, but it doesn't hurt. But 1 exercise of 3 sets would probably be more than enough here. And the next one is seated dumbbell press. That is even more overhead pressing, so we have 8 sets of overhead pressing after 10 sets of chest presses the day before. That doesn't make any sense, okay? And with a 3 times 12, I think that's a little bit too high of reps for that specific movement. Personally, when it comes to that, I never do more than 10 reps. The exercise is definitely good, but we don't need it here, and we don't need extra volume. This is completely unnecessary chunk volume. The next exercise is T-pose. If you're wondering what the fuck that is, there is a lateral raise, because I saw on the internet lateral raise and I was like, I can write that down, but I have no idea what the fuck that means, and I am not going to remember what it means. So if I write down lateral raise, when I'm going to go into the gym tomorrow, I'm going to see lateral raise and I'm gonna be like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? I have no clue what this means. So I just wrote T-pose because it looks like a T-pose, and if you remember the meme, it was a meme, T-pose, yeah. 3 sets of 12, I mean, that's alright. There's no problem with that. By the way, I did the T-pose with the dumbbell, so I did the lateral raises with a dumbbell. A cable lateral raise is a little bit better, but I also do, you know, I still do dumbbell lateral raises. I do them now as well. I have them in my program. It's a simple, good exercise, time tested, works perfectly well. The next one is the reverse fly, 3 sets of 12. Nothing wrong with the rep range and the amount of sets, but I mean, I don't know, dude. When it comes to reverse flies, you know, it's a rear delt exercise. I don't do it anymore because it's a pretty shitty exercise. Like, it's the hardest at the top when you're doing the contraction of the muscle, and really there's like essentially no stretch at all. And this was a staple for me for a long time, and it's not that good of a staple for rear delts. I would do instead either the same movement on a cable, that's way better, but probably even better is a dumbbell Powell raise or Arnold raise, whatever you want to call it, and also a Y raise. And the next one is leg raises. I don't know if I did them hanging or I have no clue. I don't remember ever doing these. And 3 sets of 20 to 25. Actually, I did probably do it hanging. It's certainly good that I'm training abs. You should train abs, okay? Everybody should train abs. I don't fucking understand why people neglect their abs and then they expect to have like a 6-pack ab and they're just like, no, abs are made in the kitchen. Well, abs are not made in the kitchen. Abs are revealed in the kitchen. But seriously, train your abs, okay? But not like this. Train it with weights, with progressive overload. The reason why I don't do hanging leg raises anymore, or basically any leg raise where I'm not lying on a bench, is because I'm too tall. And my gym recently actually did get pull-up bars that are high up enough so that I could probably do them now, but with any other bar before, I wasn't able to do them because I was just too tall and my legs would crash into the floor. For a while I was doing knee raises. That was pretty solid, but I'm not doing those either. I mean, it's not a bad movement, but the reason why I really prefer the lying version with a dumbbell between your two legs, just don't crush your balls, please, it's because it's gonna be a more stretch bias movement. It's actually very hard, so you don't need a lot of weight. I use like 7 kilograms, the most that I use, I think. And it's pretty hard, okay? And it's hard just at the bottom when your abs are the most stretched. So that's a pretty good exercise. So do your leg raises on the bench. That's gonna revolutionize your ab training. And it also decline sit-ups, good ab exercise, ab rollout, cable crunches even. Just make sure that you weight your ab exercises and you do actually do a reasonable rep range and you use progressive overload. And at the end of the workout, again, there are 5 to 10 minutes of running on a treadmill, 12 to 13 kilometers per hour. So let's go over what did we miss. We haven't trained hamstrings at all. That is because I didn't really know that they existed, which is very funny. It's very idiotic. At this point in my life, I've never heard about deadlifts, RDLs, any of that shit, leg curls. No, I've never heard about any of these. I didn't know that my thighs were not thighs, they were quads and hamstrings. I was like, thighs, we're doing squats, lunges, and I'm good. Now, when I was looking for exercises to do, I did actually see a good morning and I was like, I'm not fucking doing that. So around 7 to 8 months after I started training, when I started doing strong lifts and starting strength, that was the first time that I did a deadlift, which is a very shitty hamstring exercise. You could argue that it's not even a hamstring exercise, but yeah, I started doing that. That was the first time that I did anything that actually hit hamstrings, and even that was very poor. And only after probably, I'm gonna be honest with you, only after like a year and a half into my training journey did I start like actually training hamstrings. Now, despite that, I think they're not terrible, but do your hamstring training, okay? I think a good balance is doing maybe a hip hinge once a week, so doing something like an RDL, and then doing some sort of isolation for it as well, either a seated or a lying leg curl. I didn't train calves either. That's not because I was a calf skipper. That's because, or I mean, technically I was, but that's not because I was lazy to do calves. That was because, again, I just didn't know they existed. I didn't know that you could train calves, and I didn't know that people trained calves. And I was like, you know, I've never heard about it for so long, so I never trained them. And then one of my friends who was going to the gym as well, he showed me his routine and he was like, calf raise, and I was like, what the fuck? Why are you training calves? And then I still didn't train calves. Then probably again after a year and a half did I start training calves. And my calves are a really fucking big weak point, so train your calves. Now, I did train triceps and biceps, which was a very, very good thing. I did do my overhead presses, that was a good thing. I did do both rows and pull-ups for back, that was a good thing, but I didn't do shrugs, so that is missing. Everybody do shrugs. You don't need a lot of volume, actually. I do literally 2 sets of shrugs per week, and it improved my traps greatly. And when it comes to shrugs, you can go heavy, you can go ego lifting. Don't ego lift on all of the other stuff, but when it comes to traps, what really matters is the weighted stretch mostly. Now, you still have to probably do some range of motion, but literally, you know, you can just pack on a bunch of weights and start doing shrugs. You don't have to be extra careful with them, okay? You can push the progressive overload. For traps, it's perfectly fine. Another thing that's not here is forearms. I didn't do any forearm training, and I don't even know honestly when I first started doing forearm training. Probably like 2, maybe 2.5 years after I started lifting. And I did it for a little while and then I stopped. And yeah, even then actually I was only doing forearm exercises because my wrist started hurting when I was doing bicep curls, and I started training forearms, and it somehow helped. And so I did forearms for a while, but it was always a complete afterthought, and then I stopped training them again for some reason. Training your forearms, okay? Are they gonna grow by themselves? A little bit, yes, but not really. Train your forearms, okay? Forearms are actually a really important muscle group, so I highly recommend you to train them. Neck is also missing. I only started actually training neck pretty recently, probably like half a year ago. I think I started in October, I'm not entirely sure. I'm making this video in the beginning of May. I don't know when this will come out, actually, probably much later. But yeah, I didn't train my neck for a very long time, and ever since I started training it, I've seen a lot of growth. It's progressing really well. And honestly, you know, the neck neck adds a lot to your physique, and it's not dangerous. I mean, at this point you can clearly see that the people who get sleep apnea are usually getting it because of the high body weight and not necessarily because of their neck size. But if you do actually start training your neck and you do somehow get sleep apnea, which I highly doubt, do it at your own responsibility, okay? I'm personally not taking responsibility if something happens, or if you paralyze yourself by training your neck. You have to be intelligent about it and not ego lift and not do stupid shit. But I think neck training is really important. It's essential. It will make your physique look a lot bigger. And actually, you know, the muscles that really make you look bigger are the traps, the neck, the arms, shoulders, probably also the forearms. Of those 5, I didn't train 3 for years at a time. Like, what the fuck, man? Also, there is way too much chest volume and way too much volume for front delts, and my ab training is a complete joke. So with that said, what did I do right? Did I still do that way, or maybe I changed after this and then I changed back now and I'm doing this again? First of all, something that I am still doing, I don't think I ever stopped with that, is doing compound movements and focusing on them. You still have to do your isolations as well, and they're very important. Don't neglect those, but yeah, I never really stopped doing compound movements, and I think that's a very good thing. I never stopped doing squats, only when I had to because of some sort of pain, which happened only twice for like very short periods of time. I never really stopped. I actually did stop bench pressing, but I don't think bench pressing is a very essential movement, but it's a pretty good movement. I did stop it a couple of times for a couple of months because I was bored of it. I didn't like it as much, but I mean, I'm doing it again. Pull-ups, also a very good movement. You know, something that I was doing really well here was I was doing calisthenics, which I stopped for a brief period of time, and it wasn't a good idea. Do your calisthenics as well. They're very useful. And it's also really good to know when you're getting too fat. Now, I didn't do dips here yet, but I also recommend you to do dips as well if you can. Something I actually did do well is I was doing cardio, okay? For a long time, I stopped doing cardio after that because I quit boxing. I wasn't really doing a lot of cardio, or basically any. Do your cardio, man. It helps also your lifting. You don't necessarily need to run. You don't need to do something boring. You can go out for walks. You can just walk on a treadmill, you can go cycling, you can go play basketball or football or something. Something I did well is I was training abs. Something I didn't do well is I was doing jack shit for abs. It was complete idiotic training, but at least I was training them, so at least I was trying. Arm isolation, definitely a good thing. I was doing my fair share of arm isolation, and I actually wasn't doing complete trash exercises either, so that was solid. And after that, I did starting strength and strong lift, and I stopped with that. Fucking hell. That was the worst idea of my life, okay? My arms are still pretty skinny because I'm very tall. And also, I mean, I didn't train them for a long time. And then when I started training them again, for a long time I trained them but didn't take them seriously and did like weird retarded movements and all of that. So train your arms. These were pretty good movements, pretty solid amounts of volume. I probably didn't need that much, but it wasn't too much, wasn't too little, and the exercises weren't terrible. There were a couple of pretty good exercises, a couple of not that good ones, but still not terrible. Again, another thing I did right was doing overhead pressing. For a long time after this, I didn't neglect it, I completely cut out every single overhead press exercise from my training because I was sold out the idea of, dude, doing chest pressing is enough for your front delt. Fuck no, it's not enough. It's not enough for your front delt. It also benefits your side delts. And you know, I was doing a lot of rear delt and side delt isolation for such a long time, and my shoulders didn't really grow a lot. Guess what? In the past couple of months, like I would say probably like a year, I was really focusing and trying to progress on my overhead pressing. I did it with dumbbells, barbells, and it really helped a lot. And I see my shoulders getting a lot bigger. And guess what? I was also doing, when I wasn't doing overhead pressing, I was doing a lot of side and rear delt isolation. Now I barely do any of that, okay? I do 3 sets of side delts per week, 3 sets of rear delts per week, and I do 6 sets of overhead pressing per week, and my shoulders are growing like wheat. So that was a good thing. And another good thing was actually that, you know, the split is not the best, but it's not completely terrible. But one thing that was good is I was only going 4 days a week to the gym. That's something that you should do as a beginner. Probably even 3 days per week is gonna be enough. If you're a beginner, then you can maybe move on to 4 days per week. I personally do 4 days a week right now, and it's working perfectly fine. I'm very well off. I don't spend my entire life in the gym, and when I do actually go to the gym, I really enjoy it and I look forward to it because I don't have to go all the time. So this was really good because I was always excited to go to the gym. I didn't get burnt out. I didn't have to do too many times, but I also didn't do too little. So that was pretty solid. And as you can see, I didn't really use any machines here, and I think I did actually start doing a couple of machines after that for calves and hamstrings, and that was a good idea, but I still don't do a lot of machines. And also, if you want to know whether machines are better or not, and when they are better, when they are inferior, and how to use them, watch this video where I talk all about machines versus free weights.